Hey everyone, welcome to Global Government News. Today is Tuesday, October 20th, 2020. So in the last video, kind of left off here about the brutality and the coercion and force behind forcing people to wear face masks. It was all about the face mask in the last video, and I highlighted how they were going to possibly mandate or force people to take vaccines. And then forcing people to wear face masks, and if they can't do that legally, they'll just, beat the hell out of you if you don't. In Spain, police officer kneeling on neck of screaming 14-year-old boy for not wearing a face mask. And this was in Australia, I believe. A man run over with his car. His head was stomped because he wasn't wearing a face mask. And of course, they may have been resisting arrest in a couple of these, but still, their actions weren't really called for. Except for in the Australian article right there, they actually said that it might actually be permissible to do that, to run into him with a car or something. A French cop kicks and stomps on a British man's head, so I guess bashing in heads is fine, as he's arrested for not wearing a face mask and possessing a knife. So it's voluntary at first, vaccines, mask, and social distancing, and then it is at least half the public complies with it, because they usually do. They want to be good people, good citizens. They do it, and it puts everybody else in a weird position because something that you shouldn't be just going along with. So then, as long as enough people consent to it, then they make it illegal to not do it, to not comply. In California, this guy is insane. These governors are insane, really, in Wisconsin and elsewhere. He says to put your mask on between bites while eating. And it's no joke. From the office of the governor of California, going out to eat with members of your household this weekend, don't forget to keep your mask on in between bites. Do your part to keep those around you healthy. And for those who may not speak English or don't know how to read, it actually has a little placard here, like everything else nowadays. Very simple and basic pictures. COVID-19 dinner tip: minimize the number of times you take your mask off, put it on, you're eating, take it off when you're eating, put it back on, you're done. Again, it has nothing to do with preventing the spread of infection. It's about controlling your actions, like telling you where to stand, how far to stand. Yesterday in my video about the vaccines, I went through all the different ways that they were going to coerce people into taking vaccines. Take the jab, take the vaccine, or lose your job, according to one of the medical journals. I think it was the British New England Journal of Medicine. And this term, state health authorities, it's really important. These scientific experts, these people are authoritarian in nature, and they work in parallel, or you could say even on top of the actual government, with their private institutions and organizations like the WHO that are funded by billionaires like Bill Gates. I mean, they get shit done. They don't just talk. We were talking about the in 2010 Rockefeller's lockstep stage and the whole phase, and we're talking about the Bill Gates and Melinda Gates Foundation, along with the World Economic Forum, were the main funders of that event 201. And they went step by step as how it was going to theoretically, in quotes, go. And that's exactly how it's played out, including censoring the public and calling everybody else that questioned this narrative as being conspiracy theorists. So if you don't wear a face mask, you don't get child custody. COVID-19, a new factor for family law in Florida. It says here, the judge called the mother an anti-mask person who had the audacity to brag about it on Facebook. And that's another thing. All of these social platforms, they're all clamping down. I'm going to get to that in this video, so I'm going to keep moving. It says it illustrates how judges in family court now must consider the health risk of COVID-19 on top of juggling the interest of feuding ex-spouses and reluctant child support payers. The judge actually said she's going to wear a mask. If she doesn't, time sharing of her child is not going to happen. And it was going through all these different scenarios of how in divorce court, where the children would go, who would get custody based off risk factors, and bringing in the whole COVID-19 risk infection. If the family or the parent lives somewhere where there's a lot of cases, and they'll lose custody, or they won't get custody. So it's ridiculous. German parents face jail if they don't confine COVID-suspected children in their own homes. Some local governments are ordering kids not to eat with their family members. It says they're threatening them with fines and jail time when they don't isolate their children in their own rooms. It says your child must avoid contact with other household members in the household by ensuring that there is a separation in time and space. No meals together. Your child should preferably be alone in a room separate from other household members. So they're sending out letters to family members. And in England, they have something called, I think, bubbles. You can only stay in a certain bubble of people. Parents were asked to have their children who were 9 years old wear face coverings at home while in contact with family members. City officials even threatened to take away the children from their families and place them in a special institution for the duration of the quarantine should parents refuse to comply. Several pro-family organizations criticized the local governments for the reactions and infringement of parental rights, but I think parents have lost those rights a long time ago. Thailand seals kids in plastic boxes to prevent coronavirus, and this isn't a joke. This is about a month ago. Putting kids in plastic boxes so they don't transmit this virus. And this is in the United Kingdom. Here's another picture of them taking the temperature, which kind of simulates basically being executed, a gun to the head. Just getting people trained, getting them ready for what's coming. Back in March, I remember I covered this. I think it was in England or somewhere in Europe, about how they were going to do these little squares and stuff like that. And they've done it, so they've implemented it. Can you imagine growing up like that? It'd be insane. Schools in Thailand are forcing students to learn and play in makeshift plastic cubicles to comply with extreme social distancing measures. Along with having their temperatures taken, a facial recognition scanner automatically sends a message to their parents. And this happened in all the schools when they started up in August, especially in the colleges with parties and stuff. 250 students and staff asked to quarantine in Georgia district after 1 week of school. Quarantined for 2 weeks after several teachers and students tested positive. Did they get sick? No. Did they die? No. And that's all that really matters, is they can say cases. Study of 191 countries shows no link with coronavirus cases and school openings. I'll repeat that from Reuters, October 1st. A study of almost 200 countries shows no link with coronavirus cases and school openings. And the goal here is to get, I think they call it in-person classroom or in-person education. They want to get rid of that and just have it go completely digitized. And I think I even heard something about Bill Gates is one of the big funders. Of course, he's behind everything. Some of these learning education programs, and God only knows what they're going to learn. But I would imagine it's going to be everything that they're already learning, except it's going to be 10 times worse as far as the green sustainability agenda and complete globalism ideology. It says it points to a need to consider other factors. I guess they mean facts, and they don't really want to look too much into that. That's what's so crazy about this whole thing, is they call it science and experts. And I saw a snippet today of Fauci's interview on 60 Minutes last week, talking about how this is a war on science, anti-science, anti-experts. And it's like, no, not really. It's like, it's just that your science is bogus. It's not based off any facts, and you don't have to have a PhD. You don't have to have a PhD to look at this stuff and say it doesn't make any sense. And there are, I use the word, a plethora of scientists, but there are people out there that are scientists, that are epidemiologists, and that have spoken out against this narrative. That's basically they are legitimate, and they are an authority in their field, and yet their voices don't go out because it goes against the narrative. In fact, these videos are even pulled from YouTube or Facebook posts, and so that's all part of the clampdown, is also online and in public, just clamping down on free speech, clamping down on free movement. Schools might allow mask-free breaks outside during school term. And I listened to an interview with David Icke. I first started out listening to that guy, and I haven't really listened to him in a long time, so I was like, oh, let's see what he thinks, or what he's talking about here about this whole thing. But he did mention something about, in Ireland, them having mask-free breaks so that they could basically be allowed to breathe. And I thought that was a joke, but I looked it up, and it's true. We will have to build in movement breaks and breathing breaks for the students where they can go outside, maybe remove the mask for a little while, and then go back in parentheses, I guess you could say suffocate. Bastards. It'll actually say there's some students that may have issues or additional needs. It may not be possible, and for staff as well, to wear the mask all day. You don't need special needs, to not have to wear the mask, and no one should be wearing that thing all day. And not just the students in the school, but the families they go home to. And it's all about, like you were just saying, controlling the families as well in their homes, telling them what to do. I keep moving here. An article that I just found yesterday. It's from September 1st. CDC preparing parents for possible separation from children in emergency school sleepovers. There's an infographic suggesting parents should prepare their children for a potential sleepover at school with the ABCs. It doesn't mention anything about coronavirus, but it says, ask how you would be reunited with your child in an emergency evacuation. B, bring extra medication, special food supplies your child would need if you were separated overnight. And C, complete a backpack card and tuck in your child's backpack in your wallet. Being prepped for an emergency evacuation. Here's another infographic telling them to bring clothes, first aid kits, flashlights, food, water, batteries, whistle. This article says it seems a little excessive to be preparing children for evacuations and overnight stays simply because of a virus that is comparable to influenza in severity, a virus that kills 0% of children. And nursing homes. FBI raids a Pennsylvania nursing home where hundreds caught the coronavirus. So they accuse them of neglect and all sorts of stuff. And I kind of did the math. There was 447 people that tested positive and 73 people died. These are elderly people, older people, probably people with pre-existing conditions. And I think that came out to about 6%. So from what I know, that's right around the number 5%. 95% of the people, elderly people, survive. About 5% die. So this is about on par with the statistics, but they raided them. So it just makes you wonder, are they going to raid parents' homes if their students come in sick, or they find out they're not wearing a mask at dinner, or being isolated in their rooms? Are the feds going to raid them? Australia pushes new measure to detain COVID conspiracy theorists. Part of the COVID-19 omnibus bill, it's emergency powers, of course, you can detain anyone labeled a high risk or likely to spread COVID-19. So that would be anyone like a conspiracy theorist who refuses to self-isolate, or severely or mentally impaired people who do not have the capacity to self-quarantine. Those arrested under the new rule will be housed in quarantine facilities, so that's really nice. 8 government spokesmen saying conspiracy theorists who refuse to self-isolate and basically question this narrative will be arrested and thrown into a quarantine facility. That's where we're at now, and that's in Australia. Ontario poses highest fines in country for those who break new COVID gathering limits. We will throw the book at you if you break the rules with fines of a minimum of $10,000 for anyone who organizes illegal social gatherings. Then you have YouTube adding fact-checking information panels above the search results in the UK. They've been targeting bizarre misinformation. Chinese virologist who claimed coronavirus was created in a lab was suspended by Twitter. Remember Lockstep in 2010, a world of tighter top-down government control and more authoritarian leadership with limited innovation and growing citizen pushback. Leaders flexed their muscles and imposed airtight rules with mandatory wearing of face masks even after the pandemic faded. More authoritarian control and oversight of citizens and their activities stuck and even intensified.